If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now going to get into our top 5. Evan Bevins, why don't you explain to the people what our mission was for this top 5 we're going to do?
Well, I wish I could remember the exact card that inspired this, but one of the locations that's been there for a long time is the X Mansion. And what the X Mansion does is on turn 3, it gives you and your opponent a random card. Some of them, like turn X4, the Scroll Home World, you don't know what it's going to change it into, but it's the same point. Black Vortex gives you a 6-cost card. And so it can be good, it can be bad. There can be a huge disparity. I've seen, I don't know if it was this exact interaction, but something along the lines of my opponent gets Red Hulk and I get Misty Knight. So our top 5 is the top 5 cards you don't want to have show up randomly. But I thought it sounded a little better to say the top 5 cards you don't want to see coming out of the X Mansion.
That's right.
So I thought there are cards that I know that I was like, oh man, I hope I don't get this one from the X Mansion. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, but what would really be the worst one? So there are ones that I see and I go, and they didn't quite make my list.
Yeah, I'm adjusting my list right now. This one that I've been wrestling with has gone up and down at least 2 or 3 times. All right, there we go. I think I like this. So with that being said, let me start out with my number 5. And first, before we do this, how much overlap do you think we're going to have? Just give me a number.
I'm going to say 2, but based on past ones, I think we might only have 1.
All right. I was going to say 2 as well. I'll stick with 2. And of course, if I mention it, just say hold off on it if it's higher on your list, and we'll talk on it then.
I will say a lot of the ones on my list, I don't know that I've actually had it happen that much.
Okay.
And what I did with mine was I tried to think of the ones that would almost always be bad news, you know?
I've had a few with I think I've had my top one definitely happen to me.
I think I have had that one, but some of the others like that I thought, oh, this will probably be on there. I was like, well, it could be worse because it is a little different than what you would get from the Black Vortex.
Yeah, for sure. All right. My number 5 is going to be Destroyer.
I thought about that one. It did not make my list. You tell me why it's on your list, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay. Right now, we sort of have a situation where Destroyer is being forced upon us with Asgard besieged.
Yes.
So it's kind of like we have that exact situation where a location is forcing somebody to take Destroyer. I mean, it's turn 3. There's definitely an upswing. You have a 16-point card now on that side, and really you've only had 2 turns to get going. But it would suck if one of those turns you laid out the key card you needed, and Destroyer comes along and just wipes out the other cards. That's the one that's been bobbing up and down on my list because it really sucks to have him pop out and destroy something that you were really needing. Last thing you want to do is lose cards. And if Destroyer's popping out on turn 3 and you've got 2 other locations with 2 or 3 cards, like some 1/1s out there, a Sunspot that was going to hopefully gain you some power. Oh, well, he's not there anymore. But you've got yourself a nice 16-point Destroyer sitting on that one lane. There you go. That's my number 5. Tell me why I'm wrong or what you think.
I wouldn't say you're wrong, but like you said, since it is early, 16 points is not a bad consolation prize.
Right. I'll agree.
That's one that I think might be, I've had it pop up for me on Black Vortex a couple times, and you're hoping you don't get that. It can definitely mess you up, especially with as popular as Sam Wilson Cap has been. And if you wipe him out, then you just got that shield sitting there not really doing it. At least the shield would survive. But yeah, that one definitely was on my list, but I thought that one isn't almost always going to be a negative. It can definitely mess you up, but that's why it didn't quite make mine. My number 5 was a late edition because it's a card I don't think about very much. I don't think I've ever gotten it inadvertently on X Mansion or anywhere else like that, and I'm glad I haven't. It's probably the card. Now, 6 months from now, I may get this card and find that it's really quite useful because that tends to happen with a lot of the cards that I complain about. But right now, it's a season pass card that did not tempt me for a second, and it doesn't tempt me when it shows up in the shop. I just don't have much use for Agent Venom.
Agent Venom. Wow. On my list, not the official list, but on my list as an honorable mention. Yeah, I agree, because Agent Venom pops up. It's going to cause some problems.
I mean, I can see if you're using a very specific deck, he might be fun to try to build around. He doesn't work in a Cerebro deck unless you're going to destroy him or reduce his power somehow. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you've got a deck with a lot of low power cards and you throw Luke Cage in to protect some of the higher power ones. But again, that's when you're designing it. I thought about Bast, but she only does the stuff in your hand. Agent Venom's going to turn a whole lot more stuff into 3 power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not knocking the card. There may be some good strategies with it, but if it's not part of your strategy, you don't want that guy coming out of the front door of the X-Men.
You do not want a 6-cost 3-power Hulk. That that's just, it's going to ruin your day. It's going to ruin your deck. So
yeah, I mean, Flash Thompson may be a cool guy to hang out with, but not in a game of Snap.
Okay, since that's your number 5, I can't wait to hear what your number 4 is.
Number 4, this is a card that I used to like to try to get into decks, and I have a feeling that he could find a home again if I get Starbrand. Interesting guy in the comics, made an impression in the movies, but when the door to the X-Mansion opens, you really don't want Ebony Maw coming out.
Yeah, you're right. Locking that thing down, your opponent really only has one strategy to win that lane, and they know you're not going to be able to do anything about it.
He's an interesting card to try to play, but if you've locked down a lane on turn 3, even with a 7-point card, that makes that one pretty easy for them to win.
Right.
Now, if you've got some other cards in your deck, like War Machine or whatever, that you can try to do something with Ebony Maw, that's okay. But if you're not planning on Ebony Maw, if you didn't invite him to the party, you're not going to be very happy when he shows up.
That's right. All right. Well, my number 4, I feel like this might be where we cross over. Just based on your number 5, I think our number 4 we may have some crossover here. So, number 4, Mr. Negative.
Oh, no, he did not make it on my list, but I probably should have.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I figured for sure that, I mean, my goodness, you've got a situation where Mr. Negative comes out and flips everything in your deck, and you weren't expecting that?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't design that to happen. Your day's ruined. Your deck's ruined. I mean, because
like the old peak is back again.
You use Mr. Negative because you've designed your deck to do that. Every other deck is the exact opposite of what you want Mr. Negative to do. He ends up at number 4 because I'm going to try and make stronger arguments for number 3, number 2, and number 1. If Mr. Negative shows up, I mean, turn 3, best of luck. I don't know what you've got planned now to try and win this one out. I have no idea.
Yeah, man, I feel bad for not putting him on there, although I don't quite know who I'd bump off, but it feels like I should get somebody out of there.
All right, well, then we're going to go to number 3 here. My number 3 is going to be the Blob.
Okay.
All right. Wow, I'm surprised we haven't had any crossover yet. Number 3, the Blob. Again, this is very similar to Mr. Negative, where Blob's going to absorb all these cards that you have sitting in your deck. Right now, it's turn 3. So you've got 6 cards sitting in your deck that he absorbs up to 13. If you got a low-powered deck, you won't have any cards left.
Yeah.
It's not going to be fun. You'll have a nice high-powered Blob sitting there, which is great.
That happened to me on Black Vortex recently.
That sucks.
I was like, no, I was not ready for that. I did not finish that game.
Mm-hmm. Retreat. So there you go. That's my number 3. How about your number 3?
That's a good one. I think I may have focused a little more on the power you do get. Blob and Mr. Negative are 2 good ones. I don't think that I have had it happen before. And now you're making me second guess. This might be the guy that I should have dropped for Mr. Negative. But in the right circumstances, it could suck to have Sauron show up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're playing that Cap Doom ongoing deck that I like. Now you can still get some Doom bots out there, so it wouldn't be a total loss. But Sauron's another card that if you're not planning for him, not going to help you much. Some cards like, well, it doesn't fit in the theme, but I could still use it here and there. But Sauron, like we talked about earlier, I think we're going to see him come back with Starbrand, and that's fine because you've asked him to come hang out with Starbrand. But yeah, you don't want him crashing the party.
No, you do not. Famous ex-villain, right?
Yeah, removing all your ongoing abilities, that's in the hand and deck, right?
Boy, I can't remember if that
Let me
might
see.
be the
Let me
case.
look that up. I think he does it all. He's a pretty prolific
I think you're right.
pterodactyl there.
Prolific pterodactyl. Your alliteration is astounding.
Well, yeah, the other reason you don't want that guy at a party is you could accidentally walk in on him in the bathroom. You wouldn't know he's in there because the pee is silent.
Oh, now see, come on. So, all right, so that was your number 3, right?
I was trying to take up time until I could make sure I said his ability right. Remove the abilities from all ongoing cards in your hand and deck. That's why I'm rethinking. Maybe I put him up a little high because he is situational. I mean, if you're doing a deck with gore where you mostly have on reveals, that would take gore out. So he would still suck, but I guess it depends on the type of deck you're using exactly how bad it would be. Because chances are, if you've got a deck that would benefit from Sauron popping up, you've already got him in your deck.
Yep.
Although we've all been in the situation where we can't draw the card we need the most. So in that case, it would help. But very rarely would you be going like, oh, dude, Sauron. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So that was your number 3. Then now we get to number 2 here. And this number 2 is either going to be my number 2 or my number 1. I'm waiting with bated breath. What do you have at number 2?
You think so? Because I don't know. We're demonstrating some different philosophies here. This number 2 was almost my number 1. She's not a bad card, but unless you want her in a particular deck, she could wreak some havoc. If I was throwing a party and the door, I'm just going to run this metaphor into the ground, there's a knock at the door and Jamie King walked through, I'd be pretty happy. But if I'm not playing a discard deck, I don't want to see Lady Sif coming through the door.
Oh, almost made my honorable mentions. She could be problematic for sure because you now have lost that highest cost card in your hand. And that's probably the one you were waiting to play. That was the hinge.
Gauntlet deck with Thanos or Red Hulk or something like that. I mean, there's a number of decks that she's good in, but if you're not playing a discard deck, that could really throw a wrench in your plans. So,
All right.
A card that I use a lot, but I want her there at my invitation.
That's right.
Especially, she's really good in an Agatha deck.
That's very true.
Especially when your opponent's using it. Anyway. Victories where I can get them.
Number 2 for me. Okay. We've got to cross. I cannot believe we have not crossed yet. So
I don't know.
Maybe this is it.
I wouldn't be surprised if
this has got to be the one.
Okay.
All right. Turn 3 rolls around. X Mansion is out there on the board. You've got big plans. Okay. Big plans for all 3 lanes. But who's that? Who just got spat out of the X Mansion? It's Ultron.
Oh. Yeah.
Ultron shows up. Are we crossing?
Nope.
Oh my God. I cannot believe this. All right. So Ultron shows up and then
Jesse,
the other 2.
I think the problem is that your list is better than mine. And that's why. So take this as a win.
Well, it's funny because I was like, okay, what cards make me instantly retreat? Because I've had Ultron happen at least 3 or 4 times. Come out of the X Mansion and make me want to throw my phone because both the lanes are filled up with these drones. I have nothing in my deck to help me try it. And all this guy has to do is concentrate on one lane now. He could probably beat these other 2 lanes fairly simple. And he could, whatever he wants to do to me in that one. Ultron.
Again, it's another one where if you're not planning for him, he does not help you.
No, not at all.
At least not midway through the game.
At turn 3? Because you're done. I mean, you're pretty much done unless you have Kazar and you were planning on using this in your deck. Oh, that works to my advantage. Now I don't have to lay down Ultron on the last turn. I could just do this, this, and this. You're still at a disadvantage because if you are working with those cards, they know where you're going to play them. And if they have something that can counter them, you're pretty well done.
No, don't want early Ultron.
Oh, man.
That's another one I've gotten on Black Vortex. Yes. I think I got a little too sidetracked looking at all of them, because a lot of the ones that I initially thought of were 6 costs, and I'm like, yeah, but that's Black Vortex. It's worse if it's Black Vortex. That's what I got in my head.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. It's funny. Ultron, nobody likes an early Ultron. So, Ultron can be fashionably late to the X Mansion party.
There you go.
All right, number one. This has to be the one.
I don't know.
All right, here we go. Number one card that you do not want to see for me coming out of the X Mansion on turn 3 is Evan's sworn enemy, MODOK.
Oh, no.
No? Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. This is unbelievable.
Maybe we should re-edit this as a top 10.
MODOK has to be the one. First off,
MODOK's the guy you don't want in the very first spotlight cache you open.
Oh man, turn 3, he rolls out there. You're holding on to your cards, waiting for that one card. MODOK shows up and vaporizes your hand. Okay.
So, yeah, my number 2 card was the card that discards one card for you against your will. Didn't consider the one that wipes out your whole deck.
That's bad news. And MODOK is annoying for showing up at the X Mansion. Basically, I think he shows up and everybody leaves. That's exactly what happens. Yeah. Everybody leaves when he's invited. The X Mansion party. MODOK, my number 1. Sir, please, you're number 1.
I don't think you'll dispute that this one deserves a place on the list, but you're making me second guess. I thought this one was going to be real easy. The first one that I thought of that did not make my list, again, because I kind of relegated all the 6 costs to Black Vortex, the first one I thought of was Null. That did not make my list, though, because if you get Null from the raft or something and you're not playing a destroy deck, it's kind of useless.
Right.
But he doesn't necessarily hurt you. So what I was trying to do was cards that would hurt the most decks, which doesn't excuse leaving MODOK off of there. I guess maybe I was tired. I was angry at MODOK for a long time, and I kind of made peace with him, so I just didn't want to go there.
Sure.
Jesse, we were talking about how much overlap we thought we would have. We both said 2. I thought maybe 1, but it turns out, Jesse, that the answer and my number 1 card you don't want to see coming out of the X Mansion is 0.
That's great. Nice way to wrap that one up. Very nice.
Salvaging one of my worst top 5 efforts. Okay, so whatever your plan is, and why would you be playing Typhoid Mary or Red Skull if you didn't have 0 in your deck? Whether it's an ongoing, an on-reveal, an activate, or one of those nebulous cards that you feel like should be an ongoing, but it isn't, you're generally going to want it to have text.
Yes,
and 0, who, for my money, is the number 1 entry on the top 5 we never did of cards we can't believe are in Snap. Because, there's a character in the X lore now called 0 who's not this guy. Nobody remembers this dude. Strife shows up occasionally, and he was Strife's taxi. That was it. But he's in this game with a power that is useful in certain circumstances, seems to fit with his name, has nothing to do with the character. But 0 pops out, and then whatever card you're going to play next, the text gets wiped out. And by turn 4, you're going to have some text that you really want to use.
Yes.
So perhaps not as destructive as MODOK, but a card that there's just no upside to him showing up, and he's going to mess up whatever you do next. Unless you've hit Subterranea or Leshigila and you've got a rock that you just want to toss in there as a sack. I'm talking myself out of it even now. Let's make my top 5 numbers 6 through 10 and yours number 1 through 5. Just recut this sucker as a top 10.
I love it.
I bow to your superior top 5ery, sir.
I get 0, though. I understand how that would be infuriating, because a lot of times what would happen is 0 will pop up, or I will play 0 and forget what he does. And I'll lay something out and I'm like, why didn't that happen? Oh crap, I laid out 0. He has one of the sneakiest abilities that I never can remember. I have played him.
You rarely need it.
His sole purpose in my collection is to play in the Black Swan deck. So I can activate her on turn 5. So turn 6 rolls around and I can lay out a bajillion 1-cost cards for 0 cost. He is in there to make sure that Martyr stays where she needs to be. She is not supposed to go anywhere.
Keeps Martyr in line. Could be useful for Ebony Maw. You'll see him more when people start rolling out Starbrand.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right. I like it, man. That was fun.
The other theory is perhaps after I didn't immediately come up with a top 5, maybe I started scrolling through and filled up my list with low-cost cards and then got sidetracked. Maybe that's what happened.
That could have happened as well. Yeah, a lot of mine are aside from Mr. Negative, MODOK is 5, Mr. Negative is 4, Ultron, Blob, Destroyer are all 6.
We usually don't compare our top fives, but I'm going to say, I might put some of mine ahead of Destroyer, but I think you take the crown here.
I appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
That'll make you feel better if the battle doesn't go your way.
Yeah, buddy. We got a battle coming up. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the top 5. Let me go ahead and shut this sucker down. You go ahead and get ready to tell people where they can find you. Tell them all about Asterisk 51.
If you've ever wanted to see what I personally thought of all 24 Amalgam comics, you can actually do that now, finally. I've got some reviews and discussion of movies I've found at Dollar Tree, some good, some surprising, some really unfortunate, and leave me questioning whether I actually got my money's worth. I'll be writing some stuff to tie in with Marvel's One World Under Doom series. This is not the first time Dr. Doom has taken over the Earth. Nor is it the first time that he formed his own team of Avengers.
Wow.
So we'll be looking back at some of that and maybe looking at some comics that tie in a little bit with the Daredevil series. None of this is written, so hopefully I'm putting myself on the spot here. But yeah, so asterisk51.blogspot.com, and then I pop up on some of Jesse's shows too.
Right. The source material.
When he just has no other options.
I've got plenty of time, trust me.
Waiting at the bottom of the barrel to be scraped up.
Wow. Well, okay. So we got a couple things for sure. I want to promote the Source Material Comics podcast feed, which you're most likely listening to this on right now. This is a feed where we have this show, Snap Material, where we talk about Marvel Snap. We also have Source Material, which is a comic book podcast discussing stories of just about any era. And then we have the Unspoken Issues podcast, which is dedicated to 90s comics in affiliation with the Unspoken Decade. Great Facebook group, great website out there. It's just dedicated to 90s comics. Also, big shout out to our upcoming event, the JS April. A lot of great participants happening there in April to discuss the Justice Society of America. Just go to Twitter and type in hashtag JSApril. You most likely will be able to find the tweet that has the site, and you can find everybody that's participating in this thing. My understanding, it's over 30 people are participating in JS April. Me and Chris Bailey have already got ours recorded and in the can. We have one little section I think we're going to do, and then it should be all done and ready. So April rolls around, the Justice Society will be celebrated. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're participating in that event. Evan, you got anything going on for JS April?
I will have a look at one of my favorite individual JSA issues that was part of the sequel to Kingdom Come. One of my favorite Superman story.
Ooh, very cool. Can't wait to read what you put out. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that over there is Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good one. Bye-bye.